In our work, welcome to the briefing of representatives of the civic community organization called the Open-Minded Government to discuss famous dismissals and what has been blocking the civil service reform in Ukraine. Please welcome Yuriy Lubkovych, the co-founder of the said organization. Good afternoon, everyone. Congratulate you with the holiday we have. I'll try to be short. My name is Yuriy Lubkovych. I'm the co-founder of the Open-Minded Government Initiative, which is an NGO worked in a kind of government format to provide independent expert assessment of the workings of the president, the government, and the parliament, specifically as regards draft decisions of legislations and whether they meet the public demand. Our organization is an expert institution and a think tank has addressed the top officials in the state to comment on famous dismissals because we think, in our view, these were the example of inefficient performance of the government machinery and the civil service in Ukraine. The state machinery today is 250,000 civil servants with almost the same number working in regions. It is 1,000 hryvnias taken from the pocket of each Ukrainian national to support that service. And it is also about 10 billion hryvnias a year. This is that much that Ukraine spent on corruption-related activities. We see no specific moves by the government to successfully curb the corruption, though there were attempts to reduce the special retirement benefits to ex-government officials, which provided more than 250 million hryvnias of savings to the budget. Also, the law on cleansing the government and government structure optimization also was a valuable step, but we can say that at this point the reform has been virtually stalled. And based on the information from the National Agency for Civil Service, we see that the real cuts, redundancy cuts in the civil service will barely reach 3% this year. We see among our tasks the development of a better mechanism of the model similar to that used by international institutions, and I'd like to expound 4 key points. First, optimization of the structure, then improved personnel, HR policy, improvements to the legislation, and expert assessment. As regards optimizing the structure of state apparatus, we do request from the government to get rid of all extra function in order to save on unnecessary ones and thus get rid of a third of civil servants performing this unnecessary function. We require changes to the law on, specifically the law on local councils, to reduce the number of servants and related expenses. We require further electronic e-government services introduced. As regards opacity of appointments, the public and the journalists think that the governmental policy regarding nominations of officials is still far from transparency requirements. Because of that, we suggest introducing a transparent system through the establishment of a single portal of vacant opening positions in the government, much in the way it is done in the United States, in Canada, to simplify the system and to provide for a clear-cut and understandable process of applying for these positions. The government has submitted to the parliament its new piece of legislation on civil service, but there are many omissions and gaps in our view, we think it is necessary to make changes to qualification requirements to candidates. There should be benefits attributed to the knowledge of foreign languages, to education background, and international experience of studies and work. Generally, we'd like to see the personnel service in government institutions to be transformed like HR agencies elsewhere abroad. As regards the assessment or evaluation system, we've designed a set of indicators, performance indicators, for all sorts of governmental positions, from the top ministerial one to local level, which will provide a chance to performance audit of everyone working in the government on a regular basis, including 6 months and annual appraisal. And this will serve nice grounds to consider the possibility of career development for such verified officials. We are ready to provide the whole set of our proposals to the government, to the parliament, and we truly hope that by joint efforts we will manage to rebuild the civil service in Ukraine, making it an official instrument of public administration, well at par with best international standards, which will again open up and pave the best way for further transformations in Ukraine.
Будь ласка, вчора було засідання.
Yesterday there was a meeting of a committee in the parliament where this draft law that was approved in the first reading about public service was discussed. Have you participated? Or are you experts? What are your impressions? Thank you very much for your question. Experts from organization of the government of the second opinion. We would like to participate in that project, but we cooperated with concrete MPs. Because we are an independent organization and we have representatives from all coalitions, we provided our recommendations. Next time I can tell you in more details whether they were taken into consideration. You spoke about an approach to develop and introduce KPI for public servants. How? What are the general principles there? Because on many levels, especially on mid-level, very often the result of work depends on the rest of people, players on that market, and they cannot influence on them. Could you speak about general principles? Thank you very much. Very good question. KPIs were developed by our experts, taking the best practices in Europe and in the world. Principle of Switzerland, our experts had a chance to speak to representatives of the Swiss embassy and people who run that process. We studied the experience. It doesn't, we cannot copy and paste it, but we took some very good ideas. And on mid-level, unfortunately, job descriptions are so general that it's very difficult to calculate KPI. That is done by the chief of the department, chiefs of departments. So we'd like to change the approach to assessment, and there should be responsibility of a concrete person. The responsibility should be individual and collective. So we'd like to change the whole process. Thank you. Are you planning these proposals you are talking about? How do they fit the decentralization process? Yes, they do. There should be some amendments to election law about local councils, and we speak about providing more for authorities to local level, and they should they should keep about 60-65% locally. So revenues. So that is all directly related to decentralization, and we support more rights for the regions in cities and towns. Is there any question, colleagues? If not, then I wish you success, and I would like to remind that probably you know that in June, control over spending 100 million expires in June, but the reform has not moved. So I hope that external pressure and such big sum, they will encourage to speed up reforms. And I hope that your ideas that you told, and that will be reflected there. Colleagues, thank you very much. The next brief.